The current war between Israel and Iran-backed proxies began on October 7, 2023, when Hamas decided to invade the Jewish state in an orgy of slaughter, mutilation, rape and kidnapping. But anti-Israel activists found their talking point around that.
Everybody thinks, yeah, we should start with October 7th. That's when the story begins. But you know what? That's not when the story begins. That's where the story climaxed.
Okay, if not on October 7th, then when did this conflict begin? Did it begin earlier in 2023 with the Palestinian terror attacks against Israeli Jews in August? Or in April in the Jordan Valley? Or in February in Hawara? Or in January outside a Jerusalem synagogue? Did it begin in 2021, the last major round of fighting between Israel and Hamas, when Hamas fired thousands of rockets at Israeli civilian communities, prompting Israel to launch Operation Guardian of the Walls targeting terrorist sites? What about a few years earlier with the Palestinian stabbing intifada targeting Israeli civilians? Did it begin with the suicide bombings of the Second Intifada when Palestinian terrorists murdered over 1,000 innocent Israelis, including children eating pizza, families travelling on buses, teenagers visiting a nightclub, and elderly Jews celebrating Passover? Or perhaps it was in the 90s, when Palestinian terrorists responded to the Oslo Accords with a wave of bombings, massacring Israelis in Afula, Hadara, Jerusalem, and other communities. Did it begin with the First Intifada, when Palestinians attacked and murdered not only Israeli Jews, but fellow Palestinians accused of collaborating with Israel? Did it begin with the Coastal Road massacre, when terrorists murdered 38 civilians, including 17 children? Or in Ma'alot, where PFLP terrorists slaughtered 25 hostages, including 22 children? Did it begin in 1973, when Arab armies launched the Yom Kippur War with a surprise attack against Israel on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar? Or the previous year, with the murder of members of the Israeli Olympic team in Munich? Did it begin in 1967, when the surrounding Arab nations prepared for war to attempt to destroy Israel only to lose the Six-Day War? Perhaps it began with the formation of the Palestine Liberation Organization under a charter calling for Israel's destruction, and the dozens of attacks by PLO guerrillas targeting Israeli civilians before the existence of a single so-called settlement. Did it begin in 1948, after Palestinian leaders turned down the offer of a state of their own and 5 Arab nations tried and failed to annihilate the fledgling Jewish state? Or perhaps in 1941, when Haj Amin al-Husseini, leader of the Palestinian Arabs, met in friendship with Adolf Hitler to discuss collaborating in their war against the Jews? Did it begin in the 30s, when Arabs opposed to Jews living in the land launched a bloody revolt that would kill many Jews in a 3-year-long campaign of terrorism? Among many acts of violence was the 1938 Tiberias massacre, in which Palestinian Arab terrorists burned Jewish homes and a synagogue and murdered 21 Jews, including young children? Or did it begin in 1929, when a propaganda campaign insisting the Jews wanted to take over Muslim holy sites led to a series of vicious pogroms throughout the land, culminating in Hebron with the slaughter of 67 Jews? No. Organised mass violence by Palestinian Arabs against Jews began as early as 1920. Amin al-Husseini, who would go on to collaborate with Hitler, initiated a pogrom in Jerusalem that would leave 5 Jews murdered and hundreds wounded. So yes, Norman Finkelstein is right about one thing. This didn't begin on October 7th, 2023. It didn't begin in 1967 or even 1948. Palestinian Arabs have been attacking Jews in the Holy Land since long before the rebirth of the State of Israel. The conflict didn't start because of borders or settlements or the so-called occupation. It started because extremists refused to accept Jews living in freedom and security in the indigenous Jewish homeland.
عقيدتك في اليهود واحد انهم كفار، اثنين انهم اعداء، مش اعداء عشان يحتلوا فلسطين، وانما هم اعداء ولو لم يحتلوا شيئا.
بعد عدد محدود من السنين سيدرك الجميع من الصهاينة والمستوطنين أن مجيئهم إلى فلسطين كان للمذبحة الكبرى التي يريد الله بها أن يريح البشرية من شرهم.
This is the extremist, genocidal ideology that is at the heart of the conflict.